Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today is Monday, September the 13th, and I am Farid Younos, broadcasting from Toronto, Canada. This is Omid 24 from Canada, and I am in California. Today, it's almost 3 weeks that the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, unfortunately. And again, this does not mean that we supported the Ghani government, because that was a very corrupt government, no one doubt about it. But the situation got worse because we are exploited under the name of deen or religion, and at the same time, we are colonized by a neighbor country like Pakistan. In 1996, when the Taliban took over in Afghanistan for the first time, with the support and help of ISI of Pakistan, they brutalized women, they subjugated women, they put women at home, they were beating women on the streets, they were beheading journalists, and a lot of other atrocities committed, especially against women. At that time in 1996, I decided to conduct a research on gender equality in Islam. And that was 1996. After they took over, I started to do research. Of course, as you know, research sometimes it's very time consuming. And at the same time that it was time consuming, I had to see the true nature of Islam. And it's the research is not only time consuming, but at the same time, you have to ask a question. Because any research, according to academic principles, when you conduct a research, you have to ask a question, and then you need to answer that question. And the question was very simple. Is God or Allah just or unjust? Is God or Allah just or unjust? If he is just, as all Muslims believe that God or Allah is just, then how could he discriminate against his own creation, in this case, women? If he is not just, then why am I so stupid to bow and pray for a God that was not just? Does that make sense? That was the theme of my research. I started research around end of 1996 or beginning of 1997, and I published my research by the Author House in Indiana in 2002. That's almost 20 years ago. And this is the research that I want to share with you. Gender equality in Islam. Gender equality in Islam. This book published 2002. It took me about 6 years to conduct the research and read all ulama's treatises, understanding. But the most difficult part was this, that I had to go through each verse of the Quran and each ayah of the Quran and see if that was really translated correctly. Well, unfortunately, I found out that verses relating to women were mistranslated. And this is what research is all about, because research means to find something new. Research does not mean that you should copy other people's work or quote other people's work. Research is a combined word. It's meaning to do again or redo, search means to find out. So research is to find something new. And I found out through this research that Allah is just, and He did not and does not discriminate against women. And men and women, by the men and women are equal civilly. I add civilly because the structure of men and women are different. That does not mean that men are superior because their body structure is different and stronger, or women are inferior because their body structure is inferior. And 5 years ago, I did another research 15 years later in Farsi language, in my mother language, which I learned and understood more things about gender equality. And that I will include this with my Farsi research in my new book, Muslim Family, inshallah, coming up in 2022 or early 2023. I'm working on it. Muslim Family. So the first thing, if you believe, because Islam is a deen means religion, but religion is not really conveying deen. Deen is a way of life that designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for humanity, not just Muslims. And those who accept it, fine. Those who do not accept it, fine. So the first thing you need to know that Allah is just, and He does not discriminate against His own creation. Now, we have to see men and women in 3 phases. Are they equal to men or not? So the first thing is about creation of men and women. So the when you read the creation, so it's very interesting that O mankind, reverence your guardian Lord, who created from a single soul, created of like nature, his mate, and from them twin scattered like seeds, countless men and women. Fear Allah, through whom you demand your mutual rights. So in this is Surah Nisa, women, verse 1. Nafse wahid, that means single soul. Men and women are created from a single soul. It's not like men are created differently and women are created differently. No, they are created from a single soul. Nafse wahid. What this tells us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created men and women equal in creation. Simple. No one can argue against this. Now, He created man from sounding clay, from mud molded into shape. Here in this verse, He says He created mankind from sounding clay, from mud molded into shape. Insan, the word insan applies both to men and women. It's a neutral word. It's a neutral, it's a neutral word. So insan does not mean only men or does not mean only women. So when the Quran use the word insan, it applies to both men and women. So both men and women are created from a sounding clay, from mud molded into shape. And this is important to note that the Arabic word insan, which has been translated as man, or annas, which has been translated as people, apply to both genders. Okay, so this is about the creation, and So now we understand that there's no problem in creation between men and women. Men and women are created equally according to verse 1, Surah or chapter Nisa, women, in the Quran. Okay. Now, and it says, we fashioned you from soil. When he says, we fashioned you from soil, that does not mean that only fashioned men and not women, or fashioned women, not men. So there are these verses, and also it says, we have indeed created mankind in the best of molds. Because mankind is created in the best of mold. Both men and women are created beautiful and handsome. So then there is a verse in the Quran that says that is in Surah Baqarah, verse 187. Now from creation, we proved that in creation, men and women are equal, created equally, because they are created from a single soul, not two different souls. Now we go to the family. In the family, there's a beautiful verse in the Quran which says, they are your garments and you are their garments. That means women are your garment and men are their garment. Garment, which is in Arabic is libas. Libas is protection of each other, support for each other, feedback for each other, cooperation with each other. So the verse clearly says women are garment to men and men are garment to women. It does not say that only men are garment to women. Both men and women are garment to each other. What this tells us that men and women complement each other. No man, according to Islamic theology, I should say, no man can reach felicity without having a woman beside him, and no woman can reach felicity without a man beside her. Why? Because men and women complement each other. And this is important. It is not a matter of production that we read in many books about reproduction or production or bringing children. Because there are some men or women who could not produce. But when they are beside each other, just their association, just their relationship, social relationship, that they talk to each other, walk with each other, take a cup of coffee with each other, they are reaching in a complete sense of understanding each other's socio-psychological existence in this universe. It doesn't matter if they bring children or not children. For example, we have some senior citizens. They're not in an age of reproduction, but they want to have a company. And there are women who are not in the age of reproduction, but they want to have a company. And that's natural law. So what we read in traditional books, that nikah or wedlock or marriage is just for production, that's wrong. Any man, any woman do need, according to Islam, do need a partner. And this partner, it doesn't matter who she is or who he is, as long as their mind click. Because as you know, age hasn't got anything to do in Islamic marriage. As long as a woman or a girl reach the legal age, and as long as a man reach the legal age, and both provide sustenance for themselves, because women can work and men can work. It's not just only men should work. And I give you a beautiful example. In the time of communists in Afghanistan, many men went to jail and they were martyred and they were assassinated. They went to jail. Their women were working and providing sustenance for their families. So this is, again, we have something wrong, that only men provide sustenance. Sustenance means food, clothing, home, all that. No, it is both men and women are allowed to work, and according to Quran, not according to me. Not according to me. So when the Quran says, "Behold, your Lord said to the angels, I will create a vicegerent on earth." Vicegerent means representative. And representative does not mean only men. It means both men and women. So why we have a lot of misunderstanding about all these issues? It is my understanding that the earlier scholars, they did not go through the meaning of the words from an etymological point of view, to see the roots of the word, and to see also the history of Islam. So again, when it says I create a representative on earth, that representative, Khalifa is both men and women. Nowhere in the Quran or even in the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ you can find that women are not Khalifa. As a matter of fact, in the Quran, there was a woman, her name was Bilqis. She was a ruler. And history tells us that she was one of the best rulers in the world at that time, and she was a woman. Khadija, the first wife of the Prophet of Islam, she was a businesswoman, and Muhammad was working for her. Muhammad was working for her. Aisha, the third wife of the Prophet, because after Khadija, he married an older woman only a very, very short time, that many people do not mention that or recall that, but actually he married an older woman. And Aisha was a politician. She was a muhaddis. She was reporting hadith, the saying of the Prophet. And she was a politician because she gathered men around herself. And for a disagreement with Ali, the son-in-law of the Prophet, the husband of the Fatima, she launched a war. Whether we agree with her or not agree with her, or she was in right or not right, that's not our business. But she played her role as a politician. So nowhere in the Quran or the Hadith you find the Hadith that correspond to the Quran. Only hadiths that correspond to the Quran. And in society, it says, we have honored the children of Adam. وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have honored the children of Adam. The children of Adam is both men and women. The Quran does not say, I have honored, or we have honored men alone. The Quran does not say we have honored women alone. The Quran says we have honored the children of Adam alone. So, and then it says, the believers are but a single brotherhood, so make peace and reconciliation between your contending brothers, and fear Allah that you may receive mercy. That's another verse. The believers are but a single brotherhood. What mistranslated here is the actual ayah in Arabic is إنما المؤمنين إخوة. إنما المؤمنين إخوة. That mu'mineen, the believers, are brothers and sisters in deen. In deen. This only translated as male, and that is wrong. Because when we go through etymology, the study of words, we found out that ikhwa, إنما المؤمنين إخوة, ikhwa is derived from two other characters, akh for male and ukht for female. So the actual translation of this ayah is believers are of a single sisterhood and brotherhood. So make peace and reconciliation between your contending sisters and brothers. And we are sisters and brothers in deen. Before I forget about the age that I mentioned a few minutes ago, any girl reach the age of legal age and a man reach the legal age, they can be engaged, they can marry, they can be partners, as long as both agree for that marriage. There is a hadith of the Prophet that no one should force a divorced woman or a young girl to marriage without her consent. That is the hadith. So no one can force anyone. But if there is a woman, her husband is 20 years or 30 years older, that's fine, as long as she agrees. And if there is a girl who is much younger than her husband, or the woman is much older than the husband, as long as they agree, that's fine. Because Khadija was like over 40 years old, the first wife of the Prophet, and Aisha was like 25 years younger. So age hasn't got anything to do in marriage in Islam, or partnership or friendship, as long as they both agree and their mind click. But no one can force each other for marriage or a wrong relationship. Sisterhood and brotherhood in deen means that I should not have a bad eye, as we say in Afghanistan, to a woman, and she should not have a bad eye to that man, but they can talk and discuss and do anything. But if they decide to marry one day, that's their choice. She has the right to reject, or she has the right to accept. By the same token, he has the right to accept or the right to reject. And we will talk about nikah, wedlock, or marriage in Islam in another program. So what, and then in society, I have to find that verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that both men and women, I will not waste, Allah says in the Quran, I will not waste the work, amal of either of you, male or female. I will not waste the work of any of you, either male or female. So work is permitted by the Quran for women. And alhamdulillah, we have so many women around the world that they are working as doctors, nurses, politicians, hotel managers, any field, because the Quran allowed them to work. So, sorry, and also education. The Prophet of Islam says, learning is mandatory for all men and women. And the Quran says, "O my Lord, advance me in knowledge." وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. This وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, "O my Lord, advance me in knowledge." It's not for men only, or it's not for women only. It's for both. So, in society, they can learn, they can work according to Quran. They can choose their husband, they can choose their wife. No one can force each other for marriage. No one should have a bad intention on a woman or a bad intention on a man, because they're sisters and brothers in society. And their relationship is based on moral and ethical values. Only moral and ethical values. So these things that they separate men and women in some parties, and some women do not talk to men in some parties, these are all against Islam. No one bear the sin or guna or responsibility of another person in Islam. Every one of us, men and women, are responsible for our own sin and wrongdoing. And deen is an issue of heart and mind. It cannot be imposed as the Taliban does. We cannot subjugate women for any reason and decide for them. Women have the right to decide for themselves whether they want to work, whether they want to marry, whether they want to stay single, or if they want to stay in an apartment by themselves. From a civic point of view, men and women have the same rights in Islam as men do. And if you have more questions, please text me at 925-203-0352. But please, this is not a complete research. I did this 20 years ago, gender equality in Islam. But it is one of my best sellers on Amazon, and some 4 or 5 people rated 5-star, because in this research, I proved 20 years ago that men and women are equal from a civic point of view in creation and family and society. And no one can deny that. So if someone says women are lower than men, that's against the Quran, against Islam, and against the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I will talk more about these issues and on my next show, because the Taliban are committed big atrocities against women, and I admire Afghan women who are raising their voice on the streets for their freedom and justice and equality. This is the program for today, and I will talk to you next week. You have a nice day, wherever you are in Europe or anywhere you are. You have a nice day and evening. Until next week, Assalamu alaikum.